Good evening, my friends. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at a threshold. Not a dramatic threshold, not one flanked by columns or lit by some cinematic light, just a doorway, ordinary in its appearance. But what lies on the other side of it is not ordinary at all. On the other side of it is a life so aligned with who you actually are, so filled with the specific things you have been quietly wanting, that it is almost difficult to look at directly. It is almost too real. And here you are, not approaching the threshold, not hoping to someday reach it, standing at it right now, in this moment, with your hand already on the frame. You may wonder how this is possible, how a collection of words moving through you at this particular moment, could represent anything as significant as a threshold. The answer is that the words are not the threshold. You are. The words have simply arrived at the moment when something in you was ready to recognize what has always been true, that the power to reshape your entire life has been residing in you since before you knew what to do with it. Every great transformation in human history, every institution built, every illness overcome, every impossible thing that became ordinary began not with resources or circumstances or the alignment of external conditions. It began with a single thought, a thought that someone held long enough, believed completely enough, felt deeply enough that the world around it had no alternative but to begin reorganizing in response. This is not inspiration. This is not a metaphor. This is the actual mechanism by which reality is constructed. And it is available to you completely, right now. The world you see around you, your circumstances, your relationships, the specific texture of your daily life is not an independent reality that you move through. It is a reflection, a faithful, precise, unedited reflection of your inner state, of what you assume about yourself, about what is possible for you, about what you deserve and what you can expect. A mirror does not editorialize. It does not decide to show you a flattering version or a cruel one. It simply reflects what stands before it, with absolute accuracy. Your outer world operates the same way. It is showing you at every moment the current state of your inner world, your most consistent beliefs, your deepest assumptions, the emotional weather you inhabit most reliably. Now consider what this means. If the outer world is a reflection of the inner world, then changing the outer world is not a matter of effort or luck or the right connections or better timing. It is a matter of changing what stands before the mirror. Change the inner state genuinely, at the level of assumption, not just at the surface level of positive thinking. And the reflection must change. It cannot do otherwise. It is law, as reliable and impersonal as any law in physics. This is what the mystics of every tradition have been pointing at, in the particular language of their time and culture. The language has varied, the imagery has shifted, but the teaching has always been the same. The invisible precedes the visible. The inner creates the outer. You are not the effect of your circumstances. You are their cause. And today we are going to be plain about this, because the time for veiled instruction has passed. You are a creator, not just of the things you consciously intend, but of the entire landscape of your life, the things you want and the things you don't, the patterns that keep repeating and the ones that keep eluding you. All of it is your creation, in the sense that it is all the objectified form of your most consistent inner states. This is sobering. It is meant to be, but it is also the most liberating thing you will ever hear. Because if you have created your current reality, even unconsciously, even inadvertently, even out of old patterns you absorbed before you knew you had a choice, then you can create a different one. The past is not your prison. It is simply your previous creation, and creation can always begin again. The instrument of this creation is imagination. Not imagination as daydream, not imagination as wishful thinking, not imagination as a pleasant but ineffectual activity you engage in when you want a break from real life. Imagination as the workshop in which your future is forged, as the precise, powerful, creative act through which what is first invisible becomes visible. When you close your eyes and enter into a scene, when you imagine it with enough vividness and enough sensory detail that it begins to feel not like a picture you are observing, but like a place you are actually inhabiting, you are not engaging in fantasy. You are stepping into a state of being. You are becoming in the only dimension where becoming first occurs. The person who already has, already is, already inhabits what you desire. And here is the thing that changes everything. Once you have genuinely stepped into that state, once the inner configuration is real, once the assumption is complete, the outer world has no option but to begin rearranging itself to match. Not because you have forced it, because that is the law. Think of it this way. If you woke up tomorrow morning as someone of genuine financial abundance, not performing wealth, not pretending it, but actually inhabiting the inner state of someone for whom prosperity is simply the natural condition of their life, how would you feel? What would your body feel like? What would your first thought be? How would you carry yourself through the morning? Can you see that by assuming that state, by genuinely, fully, from the inside inhabiting the consciousness of that person, you are already in the process of becoming them? That the outer world, reading your new frequency, must begin producing the circumstances that belong to that frequency. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking is an attempt to change the surface without changing the ground. What I am describing is a change at the level of the ground, at the level of the deep assumption, the settled inner knowing. From that level, transformation is not hoped for. It is inevitable. But we must be honest about something, because this is where most people stumble. Some of you have tried this before. You have visualized, you have affirmed, you have read the books and followed the practices and generated the feelings, or tried to generate them, and then waited. And the waiting stretched on, and doubt began to accumulate in the silence. And eventually you concluded reasonably, it seemed that this doesn't really work. Not for you, not for the circumstances you're in. To you I want to say something specific. The power does not lie in the technique. It lies in the feeling, and not just any feeling, the feeling of the thing as real, as present, as already yours. Not as something you are hoping for, not as something you believe is possible, as something that is. Here is the distinction, and it is everything. A man can visualize wealth while feeling poor. He can picture the bank account, the house, the life, and underneath the image, in the actual ground of his experience, be broadcasting the felt reality of someone who lacks. And what manifests is always the feeling, not the picture. Always the actual inner state, not the surface intention. The image without the feeling is hollow. The feeling without the image is powerful. The feeling with the image, when they align completely, when the picture and the inner state are one unified reality, that is when manifestation becomes not a possibility, but a certainty. You must learn to live from the state of fulfillment, not toward it, from it. This is the art of living from the end, treating your future dream not as a distant destination, but as a present fact, making your desire not something you are pursuing, but something you already are. When you master this, when you can genuinely, consistently inhabit the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you hold in your hands what unlocks every door you have been standing in front of, trying every key you've been given. Now I want to speak about action, because this is a question that invariably arises, and it deserves a clear answer. Should you take action toward your desires? Of course. But the quality of the action, the energy from which it flows, changes everything. Most people act from a place of not having. They act out of lack, out of urgency, out of the feeling that if they work hard enough and fast enough and desperately enough, they can close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. This is the action of someone running towards something they do not yet believe is theirs. And it has a particular quality that the world reads clearly. The quality of someone who is not sure they will make it. But when you have genuinely inhabited the inner state of your fulfilled desire, when you have lived from the end, made the assumption real, settled the matter internally, your action changes character entirely. It becomes the natural, unforced expression of who you already are. You act not to get somewhere, but because action is the natural behavior of someone who is already there. And this action has a completely different quality. It is confident without being desperate. It is purposeful without being strained. It is, in the truest sense, inspired, meaning that it flows from the inner state rather than straining toward an outer result. This is the difference between making and creating. When you make something, you are working against the resistance of what is not yet there. When you create from the state of already being what you desire, you are simply allowing the inner reality to express itself in the outer world. The first is effortful. The second, while it requires persistence, has a fundamentally different quality. It feels like becoming what you already are, rather than struggling to become what you are not. I want to give you something practical to take from tonight. As you move towards sleep this evening in that soft, receptive threshold between waking and dreaming, when the conscious mind loosens its grip and the deeper mind becomes fully open, enter into a scene, a specific scene, as vivid and sensory and real as you can make it, that implies the fulfillment of one thing you desire, not the drama of receiving it, not the moment of surprise, a scene that implies it has already been real long enough to be ordinary, a scene that would only make sense if your desire were already accomplished. Feel what it would feel like to live inside that scene. Let the feeling be as real as the image. Let them align into one complete, unified inner experience. And then let sleep come, taking that state with it into the deeper levels of your consciousness, the levels that do not argue, do not evaluate, do not compare with current circumstances, but simply accept as true what they are given and begin immediately to build from it. Do this not once, not when the mood strikes you, night after night, consistently, with the patience and persistence of someone who understands that the seed does not reveal itself on the day it is planted. The process is happening underneath in the invisible, where all real creation begins. Your only task is to plant the seed again and again, and to refuse to dig it up with doubt. The how and the when of manifestation are not yours to manage. They belong to the intelligence that runs beneath the surface of things, that orchestrates circumstances and connections and timing in ways your conscious mind could not have engineered. Your responsibility is singular. Live in the imagination of what you wish to be in reality. Hold that inner state with consistency and faith, and let the process complete itself. Some of you will wonder about other people, about free will, about whether your imagination can truly influence the behavior of other human beings, each of whom has their own inner world, their own choices. This is worth examining carefully. What you perceive as other people in your experience of them, not in the totality of who they are deeply responsive to your assumptions about them, not because they lack agency, but because the world you inhabit is shaped by your consciousness, and the people in your world show up wearing the roles your assumptions have dressed them in. If you consistently assume that people are generous, that they mean you well, that kindness is the default frequency of your world, you will find this confirmed so reliably that it will seem like luck or like you are surrounded by unusually good people. But it is not luck. You are simply inhabiting a consciousness that calls forth certain responses and renders others invisible. See the best in the people around you. Assume the best of them, not naively, not in denial of real experience, but as a creative act. Assume the version of them that you would most wish to encounter, and watch how consistently that version appears. This is the responsibility that comes with understanding creative power. Not to manipulate, to elevate, to hold the people in your world in an assumption of their goodness, their capability, their care, and to allow that assumption to call forth what it calls forth. I want to speak now to the part of you that is interested in all of this but also quietly skeptical. Can it really be this simple? You are thinking. If this were true, why would so many people be living lives so far from what they desire? The principle is simple. The application is not. What the application requires is something most people find genuinely difficult: taking complete responsibility for the creative power operating in their lives. Looking at every circumstance, the welcome ones and the unwelcome ones, and understanding that all of it is the objectified form of an inner state. Not of conscious choice, necessarily, but of inner state nonetheless. This requires giving up the comfort of being a victim of circumstances. It requires releasing the story that external conditions are the primary reality and inner states are their response. It requires a complete inversion of the way most people have been taught to understand the relationship between mind and world. Many people, when they encounter this truth, pull back from it. They prefer the familiar, even when the familiar is painful, to the unfamiliar power of genuine creative responsibility. It is easier to believe that life happens to you than to accept that life happens from you. But you are here. You have stayed with these words. That itself is not accidental. Something in you recognized, before your conscious mind confirmed it, that this is the moment when something shifts. So let me be clear about what I am not asking. I am not asking you to seek power over other people. I am not asking you to bend the world to the will of your ego. I am asking something both simpler and more demanding: that you align yourself with the creative power of the universe by mastering your inner world, that you become so genuinely, deeply, consistently aligned with your truest desires that the outer world has no option but to conform to your inner vision. This is not about domination. It is about congruence, about being the same on the inside as you wish to be on the outside, about living in imagination and feeling and daily assumption the life you are in the process of creating. Here is the challenge I want to leave you with. For the next 30 days, commit to this practice with the full weight of your intention. Choose one desire, one specific, real thing you wish to experience. Not the largest, most overwhelming thing. The one that feels most alive right now, most pressing, most genuinely wanted. Each night, as you approach sleep, spend time in the imaginal scene that implies its fulfillment. Make it sensory. Make it real. Feel the specific emotions that belong to that version of your life, not the excitement of almost having it, but the settled, ordinary, natural feeling of someone for whom it is simply true. Then live each day from that state as best you can, not performing it for others, not announcing it, simply carrying it as your private inner orientation, the felt truth from which you move through the world. When doubt arrives, and it will arrive reliably, probably on day 3, do not fight it. Simply return, gently, without drama, without self-criticism. Return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the way you would return to a path you had momentarily stepped off, not making a great event of the detour, simply resuming the direction. Do not concern yourself with how. Do not interrogate when. Do not monitor your outer circumstances for evidence of progress. The evidence will come first in subtle shifts of mood and perception, then in the slow reorganization of circumstances, then in the arrival of what you have been assuming. But monitoring for evidence is itself a form of doubt, and doubt is the only thing that genuinely delays the process. Your only task is to live from the end, to be in consciousness what you wish to be in reality, and then to trust the seed to become what seeds become when they are properly planted and faithfully tended. As you move forward from this moment, carry with you the understanding that your imagination is not decoration. It is not a pleasant faculty you employ in the margins of your real life. It is the most powerful creative instrument you possess. It is the means by which the invisible becomes visible, the mechanism through which all creation, everywhere, in every dimension, begins. Use it with intention. Use it consistently. Use it with a specific kind of love that is not sentimental but practical. The love of someone who takes their own life seriously enough to imagine it into the shape it deserves to be. The changes will come. First, subtly, a shift in how you feel when you wake up, a new quality of confidence you didn't quite plan, an opportunity that appears from a direction you weren't watching. Receive these changes not with desperate relief, as someone who needed confirmation that it was working, but with the calm acknowledgement of someone who expected them. Because you did expect them. You planted the seed. The seed is doing what seeds do. And as the changes accumulate, as the outer world begins to unmistakably reflect the inner state you have been consistently inhabiting, stay with the practice. Not because you are still trying to make something happen, but because you have found the way of living that is most aligned with what you actually are, a creator, the author of your own experience, someone who understands that the life waiting for them is not out there, subject to circumstance and chance, but in here, already real in the imagination, already complete in consciousness, already moving through the invisible toward the visible, with the irresistible momentum of a law that never, not once, fails. Your life is about to change. Not because something outside you is finally cooperating, because you have chosen with full awareness, with genuine commitment, with the simple, powerful decision of someone who understands what they are doing to change it. The threshold is here. Your hand is already on the frame. Step through. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.